I have a confession to make. I do not recall any memories of having played games on an Xbox 360. Not because I was too young to be remembering anything, but because I never owned an Xbox 360. I have always been a PC player when I was a kid, with some occasional PSP gaming on the side. Suffice to say, I've missed out on playing any and every Xbox 360 exclusive game when I was very young, and any Xbox 360 game I might decide to play now won't have even a sliver of nostalgia attached to cloud my judgment. One such Xbox 360 game I have been playing lately is Project Gotham Racing 4, and I have a lot to say. Allow me to gush out about my newfound hyperfixation now. One of the many things that will immediately jump out at you whenever you watch a PGR4 gameplay video is this game's incredible sound design. What better way to demonstrate exactly that than with the use of a montage, I wonder. The other thing you'll observe is this game's visibly dated but still surprisingly excellent for its age visuals. At 18 full years of age, this game is old enough to vote in most places, and I still find it to look impressive, especially in the rain where it shines the most. It's almost as if this game is like Drive Club before Drive Club was even a thing, and we lust after that game's visuals to this day. Owing to its great use of cube map reflections, I find PGR4 to be a very photogenic game. Just like Drive Club, PGR4 also runs at 30 frames per second on its respective console, but that isn't nearly as bad as you'd think because of this game's use of excellent per-object motion blur. I feel this game could single-handedly be the best argument against the not-at-all forced hatred of motion blur, and I genuinely pity people who cannot break free of their dogma and proceed to use the disable motion blur patch while playing this game anyway. One thing that definitely hasn't aged a day is the sheer level of driver animations. This game has everything animated, be it stick shifts, paddle shifts, and leg work. I have played racing games newer than this that do not animate leg work. Better yet, even motorcycle gear shifts and throttle inputs are also fully animated, to say nothing of the usual animations like rider leaning and weight shift that you've come to expect. Labels can be misleading, very much so, even when they're not misused and especially when they are. Project Gotham Racing 4 is commonly labeled as a simple arcade racer, and the term arcade is usually code speak for cartoonish physics. While PGR4 is nowhere near a simulator, the label it's commonly given is very misleading and outright reductive in my opinion. The game is closer to realism than it is closer to being like Midnight Club, for example, which is a textbook example of a cartoonish racing game. The Rolls-Royce Allison Model 250 C18, also known as the RR M250, is a 320 horsepower gas turboshaft engine made for use primarily in civilian helicopters. It has a very narrow power band of around 5 to 6,000 RPM and it redlines at around 6,000 RPM. The MTT Turbine Superbike, also known as the MTT Y2K bike, is an actual street-legal motorcycle with this very engine in its heart that's made it to a very long 2-speed transmission. And it's a bike you can ride in PGR4. This arcade racer accurately simulates the actual bike's behavior down to the gearing, the power band, and also the sheer heft of the entire motorbike. Old cars that aren't equipped with ABS require that you brake earlier and do threshold braking to come to a halt quick enough. Minimizing wheel spin has a tangible effect on a car's launch. Cars with lots of low-end torque can accelerate their way out of mistakes. Cars with plush suspensions sway significantly more than cars with stiff suspensions do, but not in an exaggerated manner. Shifting weight backwards on a bike during braking worsens your braking distance like it does in real life. Bikes lean realistically, unlike many other racing games that also have bikes where even the slightest of turns will result in an exaggerated lean to the side. Vehicles hydroplane on puddles. Turbocharged cars with high boost thresholds need time to spool up. The B7 Audi RS4 understeers the same way it does in real life. And ultralight cars like the Caterham R500 are unstable when braking from high speeds. I have no interest in risking being laughed out of any room by labeling this game as a sim, because it clearly isn't one, but it is more realistic than you'd think given its arcade racer label. The part about this game's physics that blows me away to this day is this game's insanely good bike physics. These bike physics weren't just good back then, they're good even today. I was already impressed by the game's incredible car physics when I picked it up and had yet to try a singular bike out. I was half expecting the bike physics to be an afterthought like a lot of other car racing games that also just so happen to have bikes, and I was dumbfounded by how actually good they are when I tried a bike out for the first time. I'm not even a bike person, but this game managed to make me pick a bike in races whenever I possibly can. Bikes are also balanced extremely well in this game. Bikes explode off the line and can take tighter corners at the expense of their naturally less grip, whereas cars have naturally more grip and are more stable while being slower off the line, and they also run a greater risk of bumping into barriers if you try to take corners a little too tight. No one vehicle type outright outclasses the other, and I'm blown away by PGR4's ability to balance 2 and 4-wheelers together on the same grid, all while having incredible physics for both. I find it funny how Gran Turismo 3's 180 car roster is commonly considered a shortcoming, and it's not hard to see why. Out of Gran Turismo 3's already smaller car roster compared to Gran Turismo 2, when around 12 of them are just duplicate variants of the same car model, it can make the car roster feel even smaller than it actually is. Even though 180 cars is actually a very healthy figure on paper. Would it be surprising if I told you Project Gotham Racing 4's vehicle roster of around 142, even smaller than that of Gran Turismo 3's, doesn't feel nearly as small? It all comes down to the sheer variety, which PGR4 excels at with flying colors. I've already mentioned the MTT Turbine Superbike. Would you perhaps fancy a Roof R50 prototype, the prototype variant of what is more commonly known as the Roof CTR3? This game has it. Do you perhaps want the prototype of what could have been an obscure Aussie supercar? Do you perhaps want a kit car, an Ariel Atom, the light car company Rocket, a heavily tuned Corvette with no roof, a 2-wheeled Ferrari, a Triumph Speed Triple, a Golf with 12 cylinders, a Honda with oval-shaped cylinders, a pickup truck from the 90s that was quicker than a Ferrari, a couple of TVRs, literal art on wheels, a ticking time bomb. Are none of the vehicles I just mentioned interesting enough for you? Would a quirky and obscure hydrogen-powered concept car from a French brand do the trick? If you're a particularly eco-conscious individual, you could even opt for the humble Tesla Roadster, because of course this game has it too. This game genuinely has it all. I just wish this game had more front-wheel drive cars, to be honest. What good is the game's vehicle roster anyway if not for equally good asphalt to drive on? The world is undoubtedly one of the biggest aspects of any racing game, and a racing game getting its world wrong will definitely have its points knocked off. PGR gets its multiple worlds right from every angle possible. Worlds that consist of Macau, New York, Las Vegas, Shanghai, Old Quebec, London, Tokyo, and St. Petersburg. First of all, the cities chosen in Project Gotham Racing 4 are all the right cities that encompass all the right qualities you'd expect. Long straightaways, sharp right angle turns, hairpins, jumps, elevation changes, narrow Asian streets that make overtaking almost impossible, and you also have the entirety of the Nürburgring at your disposal. Secondly, all of the cities in this game are very faithful to real life, down to the exact scale. These are all actual streets you could walk, bike, and even drive through in real life. St. Petersburg is especially interesting because not only is it a beautiful city, the beauty of which has been captured perfectly in-game, PGR 4 is also the one game to have the most accurate rendition of a Russian city in any video game to this day, and thanks to geopolitical events, it's not getting dethroned anytime soon. I do need to raise a crucial point that no matter how accurate the city models are, which is no trivial task mind you, it wouldn't have mattered if Bizarre Creations had chosen a city like Houston to model, for example. They genuinely chose all the right places and then modeled them down to a T. The world is one of the biggest reasons why I have never managed to get into what came after PGR, Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon 5 especially has a map so bad that not once in the 4 years since the game's release have I ever even wanted to try the game out. Forza Horizon 4 wasn't particularly good when it comes to progression either. Heck, many of FH5's issues actually began with FH4. But I know I would be engaged at least to a degree playing that game because of its vastly superior map. I know this could come off as a little too harsh, but Forza Horizon 5's map feels like a caricature. A caricature is an exaggeration by means of often ludicrous distortion of parts or characteristics. I would strongly argue that the FH5 map is a caricature of the real place of Mexico. Mexico City especially, is a genuinely beautiful and a very visually interesting place, full of interesting landmarks everywhere, and the roads aren't wide enough for zooming past at high speeds to feel sterile. Mexico City is awesome. Forza Horizon 5's fictionalized model of Mexico isn't. It is quite literally a caricature, an exaggeration of what some oblivious person that has only ever watched Hollywood films and has never even seen pictures of Mexico imagines when they think of Mexico. And I don't think words can describe how snooze-inducing it is. If I were to describe PGR4's Gotham career in one phrase, it would be that it's both simple and effective. PGR4 utilizes a calendar-style championship career system where you'll be competing in championships in various places, with each championship itself featuring from around 4 to 6 different events. The winner of the entire championship is determined by who earns the most amount of kudos in total, and you rack up kudos from your finishing position and from driving with style. What is kudos, you ask? Kudos is this game's score system and your only currency. You earn it by driving with style, drifting, power sliding, speeding, drafting, and even pulling wheelies or stoppies on top of whatever you get for your finishing position. It is a brilliant setup in my opinion. Win a race while piling on style points and you can pull in around 18,000 kudos in total from each event. The best part is that finishing first isn't actually everything. All those style bonuses mean you can still take the overall championship win in first place even if you place second or third in each individual event, as long as you're stacking enough kudos along the way. The events themselves are some of the most innovative I've ever seen, going as far as inspiring other games to this day. The types of events include Kudos Superstar, rack up as many kudos stars as possible, where 100 kudos equals 1 star. Breakthrough, pass through as many checkpoints as possible within the time limit. Speed challenge, carry as much speed as possible through checkpoints placed right after turns to rack up the highest total. Trap speed, cone sprint, a hot lap challenge where you'll have to navigate around cone gates. Cone attack, a challenge where you have to smash through as many cones as possible. Overtake, which is self-explanatory. Elimination, hot lap, regular street races, and my personal favorite, time versus kudos. Time versus kudos requires that you stop time by doing various stylish driving moves, where you are to stretch each second of the time limit you've been given as much as possible to make it to the finish line in time. This event type can be teased somewhat if you can hold drifts in the car of your choice for long enough, and I absolutely adore it. It makes for some truly hilarious moments, like the one time I managed to finish just in time by drifting my way through at the very last second. I love PGR4's Gotham career mode so much because it's simple. It deliberately does not get in your way. PGR could have gone for an in-depth car RPG career mode system the way old Gran Turismo games are known for, but that isn't the only way to make an overall great career mode now, is it? If we were to take overall player retention and a lack of repetition as two vague indicators of how successful a career mode is, then PGR4 passes that with flying colors. Just like, say, classic Gran Turismo, just through very different approaches. Classic Gran Turismo emphasizes long-term progression, car ownership, the relationship you build with your car, and player choice, while PGR4 focuses on pacing, variety, and keeping the player constantly engaged from one event to the next, and I absolutely love both. PGR4's approach to career mode is refreshingly simple. It introduces new event types at a steady, well-judged pace, then gets out of your way and lets the moment-to-moment driving do all the heavy lifting. Tokyo Extreme Racer Drift is the beloved Mountain Pass focused spin-off of Tokyo Extreme Racer that needs no introduction. The TXR Drift games hold up well. Aside from a few minor nitpicks here and there, they hold up incredibly well. A relevant example of one such nitpick being the awful score detection and penalization. Overzealous penalty systems. It's a recurring blemish from that era, and TXR Drift games are not exempt from this. It's nowhere near big enough to knock points off of any video game, but it is something you cannot quite ignore. Project Gotham Racing 4, however, does not suffer from this at all. Grazing a wall doesn't immediately drop your score like it does in the TXR Drift games. Penalizations in this game always make sense and are fully justified. Another little thing PGR4 gets right is allowing manual up and down shifting even in auto transmission mode, which is great as a training wheel type solution to someone who isn't confident in going full manual just yet. As much as I am pleasantly surprised to see PGR4 get these minor but welcome things very right, obviously this game has its faults of its own that I couldn't go without mentioning. In some cases, these faults and oversights are actually weirdly embarrassing. You cannot select the reverse layout of any track in time attack mode, so if you want to do a time attack on any track in its reverse layout, you'll have to set up a custom race with no AI and a 10 lap limit. Obviously it's called a workaround for a reason, as it's not quite the same. You cannot start from the back of a grid to handicap yourself in a custom race mode, which is baffling in my opinion. While the AI in this game is genuinely very good, even for today, the difficulty is very inconsistent. The game's default difficulty of normal feels just a tad easier than what you'd imagine, and hardcore slaps you in the face with AI even tougher than you'd expect. Not just that, but in hardcore career difficulty, I kid you not, some of these lower end championships are much harder than the higher end available championships. The helmet cam on a bike is genuinely awful and I do not recommend anyone use it. The helmet cam is misaligned in some cars for whatever reason, and the minimap sometimes fails to properly show an upcoming chicane. As much as this game gets all the big things like moment-to-moment gameplay, the career structure, and a couple little things right, it isn't perfect. But the entire package overall is one of the most well thought out I've seen in the entire racing genre, and none of these faults are unfixable in a hypothetical sequel we'll never get. I mentioned earlier how Forza Horizon 5's map being one of the biggest reasons I don't even want to try the game out. I would go one step further and say that I don't think even the better Forza Horizon games, the first one and the Xbox One version of the second, are quite the same. I am well aware that some of Bizarre Creations' former employees did go on to join Playground Games in making Forza Horizon, but I'd still argue that Forza Horizon is still not the spiritual successor like it's often made out to be. It doesn't matter if some Bizarre Creations employees worked at Playground Games, because the final product is anything but PGR. The final product lacks the tight and varied metropolitan locations to zoom past. The final product doesn't have bikes. The final product completely gave up on having a decent career mode in its subsequent entries. The final product is not enough, and I absolutely hate saying this. I absolutely hate saying this because in doing so, I run the risk of sounding like your average old equals good, new equals bad type of snob. I cannot stress this enough. I did not grow up playing any of these games. I began playing PGR4 in the August of 2025, and I cannot help but to wonder what could have been. If a PGR5 did happen, we could have gotten all of these oversights taken care of already. If a PGR5 did happen on, say, the Xbox One, we could have gotten another 60 FPS entry already, just like the first one from 2001. If a PGR5, 6, and so on did happen, we could have gotten Mexico City in one such subsequent sequel by now that would have actually done Mexico City justice, unlike FH5. A PGR5 could have also gotten many of the newer vehicles you might want but just never got in PGR4 due to release timing. For example, while I'm certainly glad that PGR3 and PGR4 have the Roof R50 prototype, giving exposure to this otherwise extremely obscure prototype of the more famous Roof CTR3, I do wish we got the real deal, but we just didn't due to the release timing of these games. In 2009, Yamaha revised the YZF R1, their flagship superbike with a cross-plane crank inline 4 engine instead of a flat-plane crank one that virtually every other car and bike uses. Long story short, this new engine makes less peak power than it theoretically would have if it was flat-plane, and it is also inherently worse when it comes to primary balance. So Yamaha had to restore balance by adding a balancing shaft that also sapped power away from and also added mass to the engine. It's seemingly worse on the surface, but the one key upside is that this engine architecture makes for an uneven firing interval, and that actually improves lap times when driven at the limit. I will link below an excellent explanation video by one of my favorite YouTubers if you're curious to learn more. It's a very interesting watch. I've already established that PGR force physics are far more realistic than you'd think they are, so I cannot help but to wonder how the crossplane crank Yamaha R1 would have handled in this game. Honestly, I could go on and on about what could have been, and I wish summonings were real, just so crying in front of a mirror about what could have been thrice in a row would actually resurrect PGR out of the blue somehow. But alas, crying won't be changing anything. But even with all that could have been, even with all the faults of this game, it gets more than enough things, big or small, so right that it makes for an incredible package that not just holds up surprisingly well, it blows many modern racing games out the water. It even went on to almost directly inspire the likes of Grid, Drive Club, and to an extent Project Cars 3. Drive Club is a game everyone en masse wishes there was a PC version of, and everyone's waiting for the game to be fully playable via shared PS4. Project Gotham Racing inspired it. Codemaster's Toka Race Driver was almost entirely about closed circuit track racing until Race Driver Grid came along and added several city tracks to race on, which can be directly attributed by Project Gotham Racing. And Project Cars 3, name and some game design misses aside, is also very reminiscent of the PGR games. All that is to say nothing of the several influential game modes that PGR brought to the table that other games continue to employ in one form or another to this day. While PGR itself may not be talked about nearly as much as it deserves to be today, its influence can be seen today and will continue to be seen in games of tomorrow, even with its embarrassing oversights, even with what could have been. Project Gotham Racing 4 is still the best racing game you have forgotten about. It is also my favorite racing game of all time now, because this game has everything I love about a racing game under the sun and then some.